The federal government has launched an inquiry into an Aboriginal corporation which provides many of the indigenous support services to Tennant Creek. The government says it takes allegations of non-compliance against its funding programs seriously, but the Julalikari Council Aboriginal Corporation says it has nothing to hide.
20 people live in Christine Grant's overcrowded, dilapidated house in Tennant Creek's Tinkali camp.
Water's leaking from the toilets and air conditioning.
Despite a federal government grant of $36 million to the Julalikari Council Aboriginal Corporation and a building consortium to refurbish Indigenous housing in 2008, there are still dozens of houses in a similar state. The government says 78 houses were refurbished. Christine Grant's house has ongoing problems.
This one doesn't work and the grill doesn't work.
Julalikari hasn't rebuilt 5 damaged community centres in Tinkali and 4 other town camps, despite receiving federal funding for them in 2009. The corporation is still expected by government to provide them.
Nothing's been done, nothing's changed.
Many Indigenous residents are making similar complaints.
People are really disappointed that there's no housing maintenance done and there has been no more new houses built.
Local business people have taken out newspaper adverts and written letters questioning why Julalikari hasn't spent government money allocated for youth and training accommodation. The federal government is still expecting the units to be completed.
A bit over 12 months ago they bought all these prefabbed homes into town and put them on different blocks around town, and they've been vacant ever since.
While Tennant Creek's Indigenous residents are crying out for services, Julalikari's last published financial report from June 2014 shows it hadn't spent $3.5 million in funding allocated by the Northern Territory and federal governments on things including housing maintenance, outstations, night patrols and youth accommodation facilities. As a result, the former General Manager of Julalikari and former Labour Government Minister Elliot McAdam has written to the federal government calling for the corporation to be put into administration.
To me, that's a perfect example of the lack of expertise and competence displayed by Julalikari Council.
Julalikari has hit back with an advertising campaign, saying it's striving to improve services and pointing out an audit in 2013 by the Indigenous Corporations watchdog made no adverse findings. The frustration boiled over this week as residents held a protest calling for Julalikari to be reformed.
We need to put things straight in this community. Let us all stand together.
They marched through the town and pinned placards in Julalikari's remote jobs programme office.
That march is just only a start. What do these things is just only a start? It's not going to be easy.
Critics have persuaded the federal government to investigate Julalikari again.
There is now an inquiry being undertaken by the Prime Minister and Cabinet. I think that will be more detailed, that will be more precise. They're looking for hard information.
The department says it takes all allegations of serious non-compliance against its funding programmes seriously, and the matter is subject to ongoing inquiries. This month, the Territory Housing Department stripped Julalikari of its housing maintenance contract and awarded it to another company. It's also lost government outstation and alcohol management plan contracts.
They've lost a lot of contracts. So if they continue as they are, they won't receive any grants. They'll lose all their contracts.
Julalikari intends to vigorously defend its service delivery record. Jane Bardon, ABC News.
The Julalikari Council Aboriginal Corporation has not been fazed by protests over its delivery of housing maintenance and other community services. The corporation's chief executive, Pat Bardon, is also chairwoman of the federal government's Aboriginals Benefit Account Advisory Board. She spoke with Jane Bardon.
Pat Bram, thanks for talking to the ABC. Many of the people who've been at the protest and who are concerned about the services that Julalikari offers have said basically that they're wondering why you haven't spent all the money that you've had for housing maintenance in every year. And in your last financial report, there was $250,000 not spent on housing maintenance and $283,000 not spent on fencing. Why is that money not being spent when there's clearly a dire need in housing?
When you're looking at the R&M, so the one was around housing management, and that's the property management, and the other was R&M. And the R&M on the houses in the town area was part of the transition of houses actually being rebuilt in the CLAs. And so there was no need to actually do R&M on the houses because they'd just been rebuilt as part of the SIHIP project.
So for residents who are now complaining about the state of their housing, how do you counter their complaints?
Right now, the rent arrears that are actually in the CLAs are over $200,000. The houses that are in the town area is over $30,000. So when people, so part of their rent money actually goes into the R&M as well, and a lot of the money is actually spent on contractors to go in and do the sewerage or the power or those sorts of things. So you're actually paying a lot of money to contractors more than doing the R&M on the houses. And the other policy is around you break it, you pay for it.
There's a lot of concern in the community over unexpended grants and funding from the federal and Northern Territory governments. Given that there's a dire need for services here, there was $1.2 million that was meant to be spent on training accommodation, $750,000 meant to be spent on youth accommodation, and $320,000 meant to be spent on a youth residential unit. Why has that not been spent, given that those services are needed?
On our books, it actually shows that the money's been, as part of the grant agreement, the money is allocated to Julalikari. But all you say when you're looking at the ABA funds, which is for the Yuwachi project, that was actually still held by ABA. That money hasn't been released. The money for the youth accommodation, that's actually been spent, and we're going through the acquittal process now.
Some members of the community have asked the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet to again investigate Julalikari's financials. Are you concerned about that, or are you saying basically that they'll find no problems in your financial accounting?
Well, we've just had our own auditors go through, and if that's what they're expecting from PM&C, then that's something that PM&C will do. We've got nothing to hide.